Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast with opinions not heard anywhere else. I am your host, Brad Wakai, coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, and that is my co-host, Tyson Gentry, coming to you live from Missoula, Montana. Now, Tyson, today, we don't really cover this a ton, but we had to talk a little golf on this episode. One, we both love golf. Two, coming off the PGA Championship, I think there's a ton of storylines and a ton of interesting things to dive into in the world of golf. So that's what we're attacking today.
Well, we're pre-pandemic boys too. Like we were out here watching long ago, and that's why we kind of had to get to this one, Brad, because Brooks Koepka all of a sudden he might be the best we've ever seen with our own eyes. Like we were here for Tiger, but not really. We were here for Phil, but not really. I'm 26. Didn't really have the opportunity to watch somebody dominate 3 PGA championships in 6 years. Crazy.
It is super impressive. Super impressive. So we're going to get into everything with Brooks, kind of talk about it historically, where that places him in the current active golfers today. Like, obviously, Rory's a big name. Scotty Scheffler is always in contention, and Jon Rahm, we assume, is going to take that next step. So we'll talk about that and kind of the landscape of golf and everything regarding that around the PGA Championship. And obviously, Michael Block, the biggest story coming out of this one, even bigger than Brooks. But let's just do a little quick recap here. I mean, Brooks Koepka, like you said, he wins it. This is his fifth major that he's won. Scotty Scheffler finishes tied for second here. Another kind of sitting around a major championship victory, super close. Victor Hovland still searching for his first one. Another top 10 for Vic in a major championship tournament. And then you got some guys that kind of down the board here. Cam Davis, somebody who's super talented, really had a good run at -5 on the day. Kurt Kitayama, same thing. One of these guys who got a win here and there. We're like, oh, he could be kind of taking that next step, and then he explodes in this major championship with the tied for fourth. Bryson DeChambeau, a slimmed down Bryson DeChambeau, who Tyson was, kind of saying, talk to me on Sunday. We'll see where he's at. Well, he finishes top 5, and this is something like finally Bryson kind of is returning back to form because at his peak, he was a great golfer. And then some other names around here, Sepp Straka, he's kind of poked around a little bit at these majors. Rory McIlroy finishes T7. Your boy Cameron Smith, T9. Patrick Cantlay, T9. Justin Rose, T9. And that rounds out your top 10. So, I mean, as you're going through that leaderboard, Tyson, what are some takeaways that you had just off the rip as you were watching this?
Well, number one was one of our favorites here on the pod, Corey Connors. Just wasn't able to get it done after in a pretty, I thought, electric first couple of days. It was like, oh, this guy's going to walk away with the PGA Championship. That's crazy. And then obviously comes back to earth a little bit. We had some late chargers, but Saturday was so weird that it's kind of hard to really get upset at some of these guys that slid way down the board with the rain and the wind and all that stuff. I mean, it wasn't great conditions, but that when you go to Oakmont, that's kind of the point, right? We're not supposed to be able to see the ball. The sand is ridiculous. The fairways are super tight. The greens are running. So why would? Of course, it's going to rain and be windy and all that stuff because that's, it's not the toughest major in golf like everyone calls the U.S. Open. But go check the leaderboards throughout history, and people don't really rip this one up no matter where it's at.
Yeah, they changed Oak Hill Country Club up there in Rochester a ton from where it was. Where it was, I think it was Keegan who won it the last time, I believe. And he made a charge early, and then he fell apart. But like you said, man, it's like we're talking like people who got there on the grounds and were reporting. They're like, yeah, this is a little bit closer to U.S. Open golf than normal PGA Championship golf. And we've seen that a bit, Tyson, where it moved from August into the second major of the year in May, where it's been some different conditions, right? Like you had to battle the weather up there in Rochester. Now, I don't think going forward that's going to be an issue because it's going to be in hotter climate areas than having to get a frost delay in May up in Rochester.
I kind of like it,
New York. Listen, I mean, I like the fact that anytime you can get a golf course that challenges these golfers, and I think sometimes we like the U.S. Open, but golfers feel like, hey, I'm getting penalized even on the good shots I hit. It didn't feel like that was the case on this course. Like if you hit elite shots, you were rewarded for it. Like you saw that with Brooks, you saw that with Scott at times. These guys who made charges on Sunday. And then when you made bad shots and you missed them, like you saw Corey Connors do on Sunday, that you were, the course took advantage of you. And that's the type of golf I like. When we were watching the week before and they're going 30 under for the tournament, Tyson, it feels like a video game.
It's too much. It's not even fun to watch, and it's really hard to explain to people that kind of just pick up the sport when they're watching, like, why didn't you do that? I'm sitting there watching with my girl, and she's like, oh, these guys are 22 under. Like, this is boring. It's just tee to green, putt in. This one is, a little bit of drama, which I think the PGA needed. And it also, the PGA got pretty lucky with the Michael Block story, because the Brooks Koepka thing should be way bigger news than what people are treating it like.
100%. So let's dive into Brooks so we can get into Michael Block too, because I just think one of the reasons why I want to do this podcast with Tyson is because we talk and text about golf a lot, but I wanted to share our thoughts because I know golf's getting a little bit more popular in recent years. We're starting to get more viewership. More people are starting to play. And I think when we talk about Brooks Koepka or think about Brooks Koepka and the landscape of things now, like, we really have to start looking at him as one of the all-time greatest golfers that we've witnessed in this generation. And to some, that may sound like hyperbole. Like, what? What are you talking about? Brooks Koepka now has 5 majors. Here are some names, some famous names that are the most of all time. Jack Nicklaus, 18, Tiger, 15, Walter Hagen, 11. Those are the only 3 guys in double digits. You go down the list. Ben Hogan, Gary Player with 9, Tom Watson, 8, Bobby Jones, Arnold Palmer, Gene Sarazen, 7, Sam Snead, 7, Harry Vardon, 7, Phil Mickelson, Nick Faldo, Lee Trevino, 6, legends, Seve Ballesteros, 5, Brooks Koepka, 5, Byron Nelson, 5, and those are really the names you can kind of pick and choose if you're a golf casual, if you're a real golf fan overall. That is quite a list of golfers to be included in, Tyson.
Oh, it's incredible. This is the Brooks argument on where he stands as like one of the greatest really feels on how you interpret the regular events, quote unquote, how you feel, about the Charles Schwab or wherever it is. Like, it doesn't matter, but he never cared. He never really felt like, oh, Brooks is here to win on a random Thursday in the middle of July. Like, it doesn't matter to him. When the majors come, Brooks Koepka all of a sudden out of nowhere, he won one and everyone was like, okay. And then he won another one. And then he was second in one, and then he was second again, and then he wins again. And here we are, basically, to lose the Masters by 1 stroke. There's no Super Bowl hangover in golf, or to take second, whatever it ended up being. There's no Super Bowl hangover in golf, but to be that high up on the leaderboard and be that charged up, and then to be able to come back and win, it's happened 3 times, and nobody else has ever done it more than once, and Brooks has now done it twice. So this dude is just like, he's a Terminator, and he's really good at grinding out these tough courses.
That's the thing, too. I think it's these tough courses because he wins the U.S. Opens and he wins PGA Championships.
Yep.
I do think he's going to win a Masters because it's all about course fit. It's all about how well you know the course, and Brooks is at that moment where he's knocking on the door at Augusta, and I think it's only a matter of time before he finally gets one there. Then we're talking about Brooks with an opportunity to be a Grand Slam winner when he wins the Masters. I think the hardest one for him is going to be the British, or the Open as they call it now, just because his ball flight's so high. And that's always a concern that you have for golfers out there, is when they hit the ball too high and you don't really have something you can knock it down if the wind's going crazy. But regardless, he's going to be in the running, Tyson, for the U.S. Open every single year. Like, we just know if it's a hard golf course, he's going to show up and he's going to play, and he's going to play well. And if the PGA Championship, if they're going to move it more towards U.S. Open type of environments, like they've done when they've been in New York when Brooks has won them, it's really hard not to circle his name as like, this guy could win anytime it's a hard course.
Do you feel validated as a Rory hater this week?
I feel very validated as it. Like, listen, I'm not like my brother is probably like the biggest Rory actual hater. Like, Rory's fine, like whatever to me. Like, I don't really hate him, but I do think that we went a little crazy on the Rory love historically. Brooks is 33 years old. He already has more than Rory. He has double John Rahm, who has a U.S. Open and now a Masters. Scotty just has the Masters. And we're talking about those guys in the light, like, oh, those are the best 3 golfers. Those are the best 3 golfers. Those are the big 3. And the problem is because Brooks on Live, we only see him get geared up for these big ones. And we're like, well, I don't really know how into it he is. I don't really know, like, the pressure. Like, can he withstand the pressure of 4 rounds instead of 3 coming over from Live? Is it really challenging him, those courses, things like that? And Brooks has just proven it once again. Hey, if I'm healthy, if I'm in a major, I'm the guy that you should be looking at who's going to win these more than anybody else in the world. And it's just remarkable how he continues to do it.
Well, and this time, and he almost got away with one too earlier in the year, but he's a hunter. And so this time he found his way through, and then all of a sudden it was like, can Brooks hold this lead again? The live thing is funny because whether how you feel about it, politically and all that other stuff aside, last time we saw him, his body was breaking. Playing every weekend, playing 4 rounds a weekend. He plays less. He plays less rounds in those tournaments that he's already kind of picking and choosing his spots. And then he shows up healthy, ready to roll, and he's the best player in the world. To me, that's like Bryson DeChambeau said that validated live. I think that validated Brooks Koepka's decision a lot more than it validated the live golf tour. And I mean, they have good players, so they're going to do well when it comes to these massive things. But like, he was right. The rest of us are not. I guess you and me are a little bit excluded. But as far as like the narrative on him that, oh, this guy doesn't care and he's lazy or whatever because he's quote unquote load managing himself, like nobody's all that mad at these NBA guys. But Brooks Koepka wants to pick and choose his spot so his back doesn't break on the 12th hole, and now he won again.
And I think that's the thing, right? And that's what sucks for me about live. It's like, I don't hate, like, whatever. If you're into the anti-live because of the political stuff, that's your prerogative. Me personally, I don't care. Like, whatever. These guys took money, and is it from a shady source? If that's what you think, sure. But at the end of the day, you can't tell me that the average person is not going to take jobs that's going to pay them exponentially amount of more money to do less work. Like, that's just how it works in this country. So I don't really fault them. If that's what they feel is best for them, that's what they feel is best for their family, whatever. The thing that I'm disappointed with live about is I don't get to see Brooks every week. Like, Brooks is probably my favorite golfer right now. Like, I love Brooks Koepka. I root for him anytime I get to, and it just sucks that it's only the 4 major tournaments now. But Brooks is one of my favorite golfers. Like, DJ, I mean, who doesn't like DJ? He's just chill and hits bombs, and you're just like, man, this dude's cool. Like, he just seems cool. I mean, whatever you want to say about Bryson, I know some people hate him. There's always something going on crazy in a Bryson round.
That's true.
Like, it's just
TV.
entertaining. And so TV. We don't get to watch these guys every week, Tyson. That's what I'm like, oh, man, like, that's what sucks about live for me.
The disrespect to Cam Smith right there it won't be tolerated.
Well, I know you're a bigger Cam Smith guy than me.
And he hasn't shown up to the level of 2 of those guys you just named so far in majors. But all that stuff aside, it's like, it just sucks to have the best players in the world be on different continents every other weekend. Because it's one thing when Rombo or whoever wants to hop on the DP World Tour, they're playing European Tour events or whatever, while everyone else is playing a different tournament over in the PGA. We know 70% of the time we're going to get these guys to play against each other. And now we only get it 4 times, which begs the question, Brad, this is better for the networks as far as major coverage goes, right?
Oh, definitely.
Like, it's not even close.
I think especially when you bill it as, hey, these guys are coming back. Hey, you get to see Brooks, you get to see DJ.
Phil.
Because there's really nothing surrounding like any excitement on the CW for the live, right? I think their TV ratings were horrible. I think people even forgot they were on the CW. So this could change, right? Like, we're in an early stage of live. Like, I mean, we're big UFC fans. When that first started going mainstream, it was not what it is now, right? It was a slow build that had to build into something. Now, is live going to be able to do that? Who knows? Like, to be completely honest, I can't sit here and say one thing or the other. I think the odds are stacked against it if you're being realistic, just because of the relationships that the PGA Tour already has with these networks,
and the notoriety,
exists. And exactly. So they're fighting an uphill battle for sure. But I think to answer your question, yeah, I mean, when we don't get to see Brooks, when we want to see him, and we're like, hey, this guy just won the PGA, he's coming back. I think that definitely helps people be like, okay, I'm going to get to the TV because it feels big.
So now are you back on? I'm betting Brooks every weekend.
Any major, I'm probably holding the ticket, man. I mean, probably not at the Open, like I said, but I think for the other 3, I'm definitely they won't be a Masters tournament. I'm not holding a Brooks ticket just because I know he's going to win one.
So for the people at home, and that's kind of what I was hoping you would say, we had this discussion about Scotty Scheffler. Brad was always going to be holding a Scotty ticket. He's wearing the jacket. John Rahm now is wearing the jacket, and that was the same thing.
And I missed him last year, though. This year.
I know, but
stupidly,
if you go back and you listen, there was maybe a little conversation. Brad's betting brain is he's overloaded. He has the NCAA basketball tournament on at the same time. It's too much really to keep track of. But to the point where like this guy's going to enter every major, and we're going to think, like it's Brooks Koepka. He's going off the board as the fifth option. I'm holding a ticket. That's as great as you can get to me. Like it doesn't matter now where he is on the board. Like we're all like, oh, Brooks Koepka's in the field. He could win, and it's not you and me. It's people that only watch twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference with golf greatness versus NFL, NBA, whatever else. He's penetrated now into households. People are talking about him, and now people are going to know who he is, where that wasn't really the case after his first PGA. It honestly wasn't the case until, to me, he almost holed out to beat Phil when Phil won his PGA Championship at 50, because that was the first time I heard people like, oh, he's playing with Brooks, and like Brooks is coming from behind. I don't know if he can get it done. And that was Phil Mickelson. So for people to be saying these things to casual golf fan, to me, it just signals like, this dude's special. We've reached that point.
Absolutely. You completely agree with you there. Love Brooks. Yeah, and the unexpected name that came out of this PGA Championship is Michael Block. And this story has gone absolutely viral just because of the craziness that occurred on Sunday. He wanted to make the cut. That was like his goal coming into the week. This was his 5th try at the PGA Championship. And so if you don't know who Michael Block is, he's a PGA club professional. Like he's not a PGA Tour like player. No. Like he is the club pro at his local golf club. That's who this guy is. And so at the PGA Championship, these guys get to qualify and then they're in the tournament. And so if you go low PGA club pro, you get a trophy, you get recognized, but he had never made the cut coming into this one. Well, Tyson, not only did Michael Block make the cut, he finished top 15 and qualified for next year's automatically, qualified for this week's Charles Schwab, and it had probably one of the most electric 3-hole runs, if you want to go into that we've seen in a while.
Yeah. For the people that like don't quite know, and I can't speak to this the best, but I did work private golf for like 6 years out of high school. I've seen club pros hit buckets of balls 10 times in those 6 years. It's just giving lessons to, Joe Schmo and some old man or old woman and some kids. And then you hop in the car, you go home, you do it the next day, you do a bunch of paperwork. He's not out there practicing like these guys. This is their only job and only career. So it truly is, if you're wondering why people are freaking out, it's like if the dude from your high school that was the best football player got into the NFL and then like did okay. You would be like, what the fuck? Like, how'd this happen? And not just did he did okay. I mean, the guy took home $280,000 pre-tax, and he lives in Cali, so I don't know how that's going to end up. But it's like 100 lessons or 1,000 lessons or whatever that he had to give out at his local club. Probably more than that. Probably double. Probably closer to 2,000 lessons. Hits a hole-in-one, gets to play with Rory McIlroy, becomes a story of the tournament. And Brad, he was cool as shit the whole time.
So grateful, hey, I'm just gonna soak up this moment. And we're talking about a guy who's like a relatively unknown guy. He'd been hanging around, and I think like the golf like true diehards, they're like, oh, Michael Block's probably like the best PGA club pro in the country. But then to go from there into people are chanting your name, you're on hole 1, and like you got the loudest reception on Sunday is just surreal. And then anybody, I mean, he went par for the 3 days, 70, 70, 70, sitting there at even par. And you would think like anybody's just going to crumble under the pressure playing with Rory on Sunday. You played miraculously.
I need a washing machine by hole 3.
Oh my gosh. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
What was going through your head when I think that hole-in-one was one of the most electric moments I've ever seen? And like, it wasn't live because we got it thrown back on us a little bit, but it happened right in front of us, and it was all when we were like, "Oh man, he's sitting at 2 over. I don't know if he's going to get his top 15."
I know, because like coming into the day, you're like, "Man, he really has a shot at top 10." Then you see like, Cam Davis, Kitayama, they're going 5 under. You're like, "Man, these guys. There's some guys making charges. It's going to be tough." And then they didn't really show that because Rory was quiet after he started early, and you're like, "Man, we're not getting a lot of Michael Block and Rory," so it feels like he's kind of crumbling. You're like, sitting there at 2 over, like he can make a nice charge. And then when he made that hole-in-one, I mean, that was just insane, right? Like that was just unbelievable.
It was straight in. It was straight in. The par save on 17, the par save on 18 were unreal. And all that was going through my head selfishly, and maybe I'm a bit of a hater. I love Vic, but when I saw Michael Block scramble for those up and downs, like that has to hurt a little bit if you're Victor Hovland, because if he gets up and down from out of the sand, we might be having a different discussion today. It might be Victor gets his first. And I didn't mean to turn that on him, but I mean, that's what I was thinking.
Michael Block was 6th in strokes gained putting in this tournament. Compare that with Brooks, who was unbelievable all week with the putter. He was 15th. Scotty, who has not been a great putter in a stretch, was 35th in the field in strokes gained putting. Hovland, who putted exceptionally well, 24th. And we're comparing this. Cameron Smith, who's like, regarded as one of the best putters, if not the best putter in the world, was 2nd in this tournament in strokes gained putting. And you're talking about Michael Block, PGA Tour Pro.
Dude, no, he just walks
6th.
up and hits it.
It's crazy. Unbelievable story. And, Tyson, he's into this week's field. He's 500-1 based here on FanDuel. He's not last in the tournament. He is tied for last, but Rory Sabatini, Harry Higgs, Cole Hammer, David Lipsky, Russell Knox, Zach Johnson, Luke Donald. Luke Donald and Zach Johnson are the Ryder Cup captains. They're all 500-1. And there's Dylan Fratelli. Dude,
Instagram star.
There's Michael Block, 500-1. I'm looking at it here.
Are you holding the ticket?
I can't do it. I just think it's too much. But what a great story.
If he competes this week and he competes at the RBC Heritage, if you're over at Live, are you thinking about throwing a little contract his way?
Jeez, if I'm at Live, yeah, why
not? That's what I think too.
Names. If I was Michael Block, I'd take that too.
I think that this guy just changed the entire trajectory of his life this week and has a real chance to make generational money, which it's awesome, dude. It's crazy. And if you look at his resume, I was doing that today, kind of going through it. He's been the best, club pro in his area and his region for the better part of the last decade and even before then. But he plays in events and all that stuff, and it was really cool that it just finally clicked. And his game was he was taking driver off the deck. His ball speed wasn't crazy. You're watching that sitting at home, and it looks way closer to a realistic top end for the average guy than when you're watching John Rahm or Brooks or Scotty or whoever.
All right, what a great! I can't wait to watch him this week. That's the thing. I can't wait to watch this guy this week too. I'm already pumped up about it.
He's making the cut. Put it down now.
Oh, I see. They don't have these markets out on FanDuel right now. I was thinking that, Tyson. I'm like, I wonder what his odds are to make the cut. It's probably 3-1, 4-1.
You imagine at 500-1, it's got to be. And I don't know, they might juice it a little bit because
it's Michael Block, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So we'll see. Listen, you got to get in our chalkboard app then, which Tyson will tell you about at the end. That's what we put stuff down every week for regarding golf. I had a tough week for the PGA last week. It was not pretty, but I have a good feeling about this week, Tyson. So I want to get into this a little bit, and I'll give out a couple leans early on that I'm looking at and kind of some things I looked into. But we talked about Brooks, and it feels like right now when it's major championship golf, he's the guy. We have to start with him. We have to start with Scotty. Rahm's always in contention. I feel like Rory's kind of fallen out of that a little bit. But I do want to ask you just about some of these other golfers, because we just stopped the streak of major winners under the age of 30. I think it was the second or tied for the most amount of wins by players under the age of 30 in a major championship run. So let's start with Scotty. Let's just kind of bounce around. What are you seeing from these guys? Is it overly competitive? Are we going to see somebody like Tiger and Phil who just run up these major numbers? Are we going to see Rory win again? Where are you at just the game of golf right now?
Oh, I don't think we'll see 14 or 15 out of any of these guys. It would be incredible, but Scotty puts on the jacket, and then the next day is can this guy catch Tiger? And that's just, it's so unrealistic. And part of it is because there's so many good young ones or fresh faces, so to speak, on the PGA Tour, guys that haven't been there for more than 5 years or whatever. But they're going to compete with Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth and whoever else, Brooks Koepka or whatever other guy in that age range that you kind of want to mention for pretty much the rest of their careers. These guys aren't going away unless something kind of catastrophic happens. And those are real guys with true pedigree who kind of came into golf at the tail end of some of these, the last dominant run. So it took them a minute to break through. But to me, they're all essentially at the same point. Like, I don't think one is like head. Rory's the greatest out of those names as far as like accolades go throughout this point in his career, but he's not even fucking close. And so to think that one of these other guys is going to get, like, if Scotty Scheffler won 10 majors, I think it's a lot of Masters. I think he's have to win the Masters like 6 times.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, as we're looking through, I mean, so besides Brooks, Rory has the most with 4. Jordan Spieth has 3. DJ has 2.
He's old.
Colin Morikawa has 2. And that came in a meteoric rise from him. John Rahm has 2. Justin Thomas has 2. And then Scotty Scheffler has 1. It's interesting you say that because it feels like it's kind of spread out, right? Like, oh, Justin Thomas had a good run. Oh, he had a good charge here. Colin had a good run. You know, Jordan, when he won his, it's been a while since he's won his. But I mean, Rahm won that U.S. Open. That took a while for him to win that Masters. There's a ton of good golfers out right now, but it doesn't feel like we're just kind of recycling some of the same names.
Oh yeah, for
just
sure.
Around the majors, right? It's like, okay, it's my turn here, it's your turn here. And it feels like a ton of these different golfers are winning these events week to week. But when we get to the big boys, it always feels like it's the same names.
Well, I think, at least to me, there's like a definitive top 15. Like, if you were making a board of guys that you would have on your board, and I wasn't old enough, but I don't know if that's been the case previously in the history of golf for some of these guys to get to 18 majors or 14. Like, that's ridiculous. 11. If somebody's going to do that, they're not on tour right now. It's got to be some kid in college that we don't quite know about yet or whatever that's going to be able to do it, because these dudes are throw a dart, you know?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Data Golf right now has Scotty Scheffler as the number 1 player in the world, John Rahm number 2. Number 3 and 4, 2 guys that haven't won a major, Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay. And you kind of throw their names into the mix like, hey, you know, it feels like their time's coming. They just haven't been able to get over that hump. And then you talk about guys like Tony Finau, Victor Hovland, who's been around, and they haven't been able to get over the hump either. And I think that's interesting when you look at the landscape. Like, we have so many guys. Like, it almost feels inevitable at some point Xander and Patrick Cantlay are going to win.
You think Vic's going to win one?
I think Victor will. I think he's a good enough player.
We're still a Will's Outdoors podcast.
Right. And we got to see what he's like when he comes back from his back injury in September. I think, honestly, this is going to help him. I mean, listen, if your back's hurting and you need it to get fused, like that, at some point you have to do that, or else you're just not going to be the same type of player. I mean, look at what Jason Day's done in his return, that he's healthy. Like, he's returning to form as one of these top guys. But you know, it's interesting, Tyson. I mean, I'm looking at these rankings. Like, there's a ton of names on this list that they're just super talented who have never won one or kind of like hang around. You know why? We view them as winners.
It's because golf is super hard. So it's like it takes forever for these guys to break through, and then it seems once they break through, the walk's different, the caddy feels a little different. Like, everything about them just turns up to another level. Like Justin Thomas at 23 versus Justin Thomas when he won, his hair's coming back, all that stuff.
Have you looked into Charles Schwab this week at all in terms of anything you're betting, or is there interest, or you take off a week after the PGA Championship? Like, all right, I got to breathe. I got to get things going.
I might start taking a look tomorrow. I haven't done any work as of today. As a matter of fact, I know for sure one guy in the field.
Michael Block.
You bet.
I love it. All right, we'll give you a quick little run through here. I mean, Scotty Scheffler is your favorite here on FanDuel at plus 400. I mean, that just seems insane to me, but I'll kind of touch on things that I looked at as I did my work a bit. But Jordan Spieth, second favorite, plus 1,200. Victor Hovland, Tony Finau, both at plus 1,400. Colin Morikawa, plus 1,600. Then in your 2,000 range, Sung Jae Im, Max Homa, Sam Burns. And that range, Sam Burns won last year, beat Scotty Scheffler in the playoff, and it goes down from there. And you can find out some of the other big names if you take a peek at this. But Tyson, this is a small course. Like, we're talking about, it was tight last week, fairway, like the length of the fairways, or the width of the fairways, I should say. This is smaller. So it's similar things what we're looking at last week when we're like, hey, you need to be accurate off the tee, but you don't need to be as long off the tee to win this one as you did at Oak Hill. So that's something to keep in mind. So I think driving accuracy, that was a huge thing that I was looking into. But listen, we're back down in Texas. We're not really going to have to worry about any weather delays or rain or anything like that. So this is going to be interesting. I'm not going to lie to you, but 27 yards wide is the average of the fairways. So you're gonna get pretty tight here. So
when I plugged in my numbers, board.
Exactly. Like when I plugged in my numbers, the name that was clearly popping was Scotty Scheffler. I mean, plus 400. I got to stay away from him on that just because that's just insane with some of these top players in here. Hovland second in my model, Morikawa third in the model, Tony Finau fourth, Max Homa fifth, which I think is interesting. Your boy Minwoo Lee, I'm very interested in, I think, this week at sixth in the model. Brendan Todd seventh. Sung J M, who was horrible last week, eighth. Like, I don't know if it's just one of those things you get out of your head and go. Justin Rose, who had a good showing, ninth. Sam Burns, defending champ, 10th. And then Tommy Fleetwood, who hasn't won, 11th. But those are some names that popped in this model that I ran that kind of weighted everything in here, like accuracy and some putting that has gone a long way here.
That's amazing. that whole thing was pretty crazy because I didn't even know you were running a model this whole time. I could have been getting picks for free.
Well, I had a little bit of time on my hand. I had a little time on my hands, and I was like, let me go back and just kind of see, what these past winners have done here. And so I just threw something in. And listen, as I'm looking at this, Tyson, I'm looking at your boy Minwoo Lee at plus 7,000. I mean, quite frankly, like if his name popped in that, he, based on what he did last week, man. I mean, he was good putting. That goes a long way here.
So one of the
accuracy hurts, but
one of the things with Minwoo Lee that you have to keep in mind is this guy shows up when there's bigger money on the table. Like he might not pop off and win one of these things, but it feels like at big tournaments, it's Minwoo Lee's in contention or Minwoo Lee's here, which is interesting because we were talking about it before the show, and I think you had the numbers, but just doesn't blow anybody out of the water on hardly anything. And then it gets up around the greens, and it's like, oh, this guy's pretty good. Like this guy could play a little bit after he salvages a lot of those things. I don't know. At plus 7,000, that's something I'm interested in too.
Tommy Fleetwood, man, it's really hard for me to be like,
he's dominating YouTube.
This guy does it. He's dominating YouTube now?
Yeah, he's beating all those other guys on the TaylorMade YouTube videos. So I'm saying,
oh, well, maybe this is week to get his first victory. I mean, listen, it looks good in the model. 11, 30 to 1. We're on FanDuel. He's 33 to 1. That's a name I could be interested in as well this week.
So Scotty's a dumb play until Scotty wins, right?
I think at plus 400, coming off of a disappointing kind of result last week, his putter hasn't treated him well, and you need that to win here. And historically, plus 400 to me isn't something I'm interested in.
Brad doesn't hedge. There's no hedging in him.
Some of these odds are just crazy tight. Like Jordan Spieth, wrist injury, plus 1,200. Like, come on. That seems insane.
He was a hot name going into the PGA too. And we were sitting here like, has nobody read anything or paid attention?
I had to skip his favorite event. Oh, I'm going to come into the PGA with a career Grand Slam victory I could do. I don't know. I mean, Burns, the defending champ at 25 to 1. I think that takes a look. He has not played well recently.
You love him though. I mean, that's your boy. We swore him off, but we're back.
I don't know. I'm looking at home at 22 to 1. It feels short, but I kind of like these guys who missed the cut last week instead of we're in contention down the stretch because it feels like that's a let off. You know what I mean?
Well, I was thinking Homa just because like he didn't have to go through what Finau and some of those other names went through where they just got beat up on Sunday. I mean, that was what Tony finished the tournament at, like plus 15.
Oh, I guess Max didn't make the cut. Now I'm looking at it here. But yeah, Tony finished plus 15 at 72nd.
So, like, it's been 4 days by the time you tee off next. So I don't know. I've never been a believer in like just forget it and go because it's way harder than that. Like, there's still people, you're standing over the ball after shanking something and putting it in the sand, and then you can't get out in the spot you want to go. And you're on a similar course this week. That just seems too tough, but the rough will be shorter, greens will be easier, stuff like that.
Yeah, so you spray it a little bit. It's not going to be as penal. That's why I'm looking at Minwoo Lee, man. The approach should be better. It's not going to be as difficult, and if you continue to putt, it's same green, bent grass greens. It's man, plus 7,000. That's something to keep an eye on, coming in with hot form. But I know you're diving in tomorrow, Tyson. I'm ready. I think there's no placement on here, else I'd give something out. Like I'll say right now, I'm looking at Tommy Fleetwood top 20 this week. That's something I'm extremely interested in. I don't know what the odds are. If FanDuel doesn't have it out yet, they'll definitely have it tomorrow. But Tyson, tell them where they can find all of our stuff going forward.
Yeah, if you want to get more of Brad's picks, he's been in the lab, people. Like that's
I need it.
When he comes out of there. That's the problem. He's dangerous after he gets out of the lab. Those will be in the Chalkboard app. The group name is Roundtable Bets. It's on the App Store and Google Play. It's a little group of us. We're just in there, kind of talking smack with each other and just trying to have a good time because we gave out on the show Miami Heat to win the series, and I'm pretty excited to go in there and do a little victory lap on that with everybody. But NBA stuff, NFL stuff, whatever you're thinking, we got. Brad's been on a little soccer bender lately, and things are. How are things actually in the soccer world?
Well, we're coming up to the end of the season here. I know they're probably excited just because it's been a long season, but like club football is almost done, so it's basically just going to be MLS here pretty soon, which I got to dive into because I have not been paying attention much to MLS.
We have the Preakness stuff. But whatever you can think of, it's in the Chalkboard app, group name Roundtable Sports, App Store, Google Play. Fade us, tail us, doesn't matter.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you letting us talk a little golf. This is something Tyson and I love to talk about in our own time. So we thought it'd be interesting this week, but we got a ton of more content coming out for you guys. Obviously, NBA playoffs is coming up, NFL stuff. We got win totals. If you want to go back and look at that, we took an early look at those. But you can always stay connected to us in the meantime by following us on social media. Whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, the handle is the same at ISWIS_pod. Like, subscribe, and share the show. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and smash that like button. That really helps us to become more discoverable. Or if you're listening to us on podcast form, whether it's Apple or Spotify, or wherever you listen, go ahead and rate us. Go ahead and review us. Send us 5 stars, whatever the case may be. If you ask us a question there, we will answer it first thing on this podcast, but that also goes a long way to help us as well. And we really appreciate your support and anything that you do there. So like I said, we got a ton of more content coming out for you guys. NBA stuff, NFL stuff, maybe college football. We're getting close, man. We are getting close, but we got a lot more coming. We will talk to you all then. Peace.